Commissioner Card?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Trio?
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, and the state symbol of perfect friendship among the United States.
Okay. Next on the item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes that we have, Mr. Manager?
I don't believe so, sir.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trio?
Yes.
Chairman White?
Yes. The next thing is the regular meeting minutes for March 14th, 2023. Any comments, any changes? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trio?
Yes.
Chairman White?
Yes. Recognition of visitors. Tim, let's go ahead and start with you.
Tim Martinez, IT.
And then Joan.
Joanna Apodaca, County Manager's Office.
Tabitha Beaker, County Manager's Office.
Virginia Strong, County Manager's Office. Sarah Torres, Chief Deputy Clerk.
Janelle Ross, River School Board.
Tom Hill, Emergency Management.
Lee Campbell, response.
Tina Colangelo, Manager's Office.
And Mercy Trujillo, DWI Program.
John Locke, DWI program.
Glenn Stevens, Road Department.
Melissa Gervino.
Jason, Youth Corps.
Tim Montgomery, Long-Term Care.
Robert Thompson.
Roger Smith, Colfax Gazette.
Anita Valdez, Correct County.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody in attendance. Public comment. Would anybody like to come up and present or discuss anything with the commission that's not on today's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 8, discussion action, indigent care claims.
Good morning. So I have 2 this month, and they're from VMDC, which would be paid at 100%, and they're both for MCMC.
Any questions from the commission?
Move to approve.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the indigent care report. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trio?
Yes.
Chairman White?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a letter of support for Elk Ridge subdivision, their application for New Mexico County's 2023-2024 Wildfire Risk Reduction Program. So this is a wildfire reduction program that is actually sponsored by BLM and administered by New Mexico counties. In order to qualify for this, you have to be within proximity of BLM land, close enough proximity that if fire originated on your property, that it would potentially affect. So you don't have to be next door, but you have to be relatively close. And so this is a subdivision that is up 120, almost on the county line, and right to the kind of south and east of them, there is a section of BLM land, or partial section, I don't know the exact acreage. And so they're asking for this grant. And a letter of support from the county to obtain this grant. Are there any questions from the commission?
I have a question. Would we become the fiscal agent if they're awarded the grant? Do you know?
We would not become the fiscal agent for this. Yeah, this grant, the homeowners association, which is a nonprofit organization, would become the recipient of the grant. We're simply supporting them in the effort to try and obtain the grant. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the letter of support.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trio?
Yes.
Chairman Moore?
Yes. Item 10, discussion action. This is a ratification letter, a process that Ms. Kern or Commissioner Kern reminded us of in the last meeting. I actually forgot. I've never really used the ratification process, but it is a process of after a letter is sent to ratify the support of the commission. This was a letter of support for the development of a educational program in Colfax County in relation to the construction industry. It's being headed by Don Estrada. For those of you that don't know, Don is the superintendent of Cimarron Municipal School District. He is retiring in June, and he's starting this initiative where he is going to be working with high school students and other young adults to develop skill sets in the construction industry. And he'd asked for some congressional direct spending, and this is simply a letter of support. Because of timing issues, we did have to submit that letter of support. Myself and my fellow commissioners have already signed that letter of support, but this officially puts a ratification of that letter of support on the record. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the ratification of letter of support for the FY 2024 Congressional District Spending Request.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trio?
Yes.
Chairman Moore?
Yes. Item 11, discussion action on Colfax County DWI Prevention Specialist Contract. Mr. John Locke.
Good morning. This is John Locke. I'm here to be our prevention specialist for the DWI program. We're just here to approve this contract, and I noticed that there's a typo on the second page as far as the payments go, so it should be 2,000 for the month and 1,000 twice a month. That will be corrected before signature.
So the contract that we were submitted, you're saying there needs to be an amendment to it?
Yes,
This is section 4.
yes.
So, what we'll need to do is to first make a motion to amend. And, after we make, we don't need to,
You could just approve it with the corrections that she's stating. They were just typos.
okay. So you want to make a motion to approve with changes,
Correct.
okay? I'll entertain that motion.
I make a motion to approve the contract with John Locke amending section 4 to read $2,000 per month with 2 payments of $1,000 each.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trio?
Yes.
Chairman Moore?
Yes.
I do have a question just real quick on the DWI. Did we already apply for the state approved funds for a DWI program?
Yes, we have.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that it?
This is good.
Thank you.
Item 12, Discussion action on application for law enforcement protection funds.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commission, ladies and gentlemen. So that application is something that we do every year. Our LAPF funds, those funds are used to pay for training, planning, additional equipment that the sheriff's office might need as one-time expenditure based on the statute. We use those to purchase ammunition for qualification, to sending people to the next training, and or sponsoring trainings to bring them here to a time.
Any comments or questions from the commission? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the application for law enforcement protection funds.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trillo?
Yes.
Chairman White?
Yes. Thank you. Item 13, approval of volunteer firefighter annual reporting forms, para various departments.
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Tommy Hill, Emergency Management. So this is the annual submission to PERA for our volunteer firefighters. If you aren't aware, volunteer firefighters qualify under PERA. After 15 years upon retirement, they receive $150 a month, and 25 years is $250 a month. So it's something that we certainly encourage. It's one of the few benefits that come with being a volunteer firefighter.
What's the service credit eligibility? What is that as far as it being met or not?
So the annual service credit eligibility is basically making meetings, making trainings, and then it's a percentage of calls attained. So depending on the number of calls that department has, a certain percentage of those calls that firefighter needs to respond to as well.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Beal, was this inclusive of all of the fire districts?
As far as the ones that have eligible personnel.
Including
For
Rodeo
example,
Valley?
I believe all their personnel have already met retirement and they're staying on. So you can retire as a volunteer firefighter but stay on the department as well. And so we have a number of departments with folks that are already retired drawing off the ERA but are staying on as an active member of that department.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trillo?
yes.
Chairman White?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, discussion action on RFP 2023-01, purchase of grader for road department.
Good morning. We're just asking for permission to go out for bid for a new lease for a grader for the road department. Their current grader, one of their 6 current graders is the lease is going to be up in August. So we're asking to go out to bid so we can get one at the end of July before that one has to go back.
Any question?
Well, I do have a question,
Okay, I'm
because you
sorry.
say it's for lease, correct, Virginia?
Yes,
The agenda says purchase, so I'm not sure that we can approve that since it says purchase instead of lease.
Yeah, you know it.
What do you think, Madam Clerk?
You have the-
Oh, June, what do you think? I forget his name. He's so quiet. County Attorney, can you hear?
Yes, sir, I'm here. I just got a little bit, monitoring, YouTube, and it's a cell phone, so I was confused on that. Can you rephrase the question, sir?
Yeah, Yeah, so the issue is on the agenda item says purchase of grader, but they're submitting a lease agreement. Can we vote on this as the, going out for a lease agreement if the agenda item says a discussion for the purchase of a grader?
Well, I think that if there's a typo issue, that we can modify that agenda, I think we can have the vote for the changing the title from, purchase to lease. But if there's no typo, actually there's mistake of the content of that matter, that needs to be something that we can consider later. But I believe that this may be a typo from the manager's office. I mean, maybe I need to get the clarification from Virginia.
Well, it's for a lease, so we never wanted to purchase anything. I think, and I don't want to throw Sheena under the bus, but did I tell you if it was a purchase or a lease? I don't know. Or did I just say, we want to go for bid? I think so I said. I think it was communication on my part. I just told Tina I wanted to go out for bid for a grader. I didn't.
Hey, June, you're gonna need to turn off the sound on your computer while you're on the phone. Yeah, so, I don't know, I would interpret that as a typo. I mean, a typo basically is when you type something, unintentionally, or, I don't know, June, what do you think? I mean, it sounds like that, the procurement did not properly communicate to the manager's office that was developing the agenda. The intent was always to do a lease, but because of the poor communication, the agenda was developed with wrong item.
Can we just make a motion to postpone it till our next?
Just put it on the agenda, correct it at the next meeting.
Are we, is this a time sensitive issue?
It kind of is. According to what I've been told, is it'll take 6 to 9 months to get a new machine in here. So I'm kind of pushing for it if I can. They were looking at right now, it may take till September till we get that work.
So, it seems to be time sensitive, June. I guess we need a call on your part. Can we vote on this or not? Yes or no?
I think we can, because of time sensitive issue and it's a typo, like we can, the commission can vote on whether or not they should amend the title from purchase to lease because of the typographical error. And then I think the content still has been notified as lease. So therefore, I think we can vote to modify that issue if there's a sensitive issue matter. But if there's any I can't see any type of issue on that part too, but I think that there's some the notice requirement issue we need to pay attention on that part too. But I believe that we can have that modification from the title from the purchase to lease based upon the title made by the council.
So do we need to make a motion to amend the agenda item 14 to say from purchase to lease?
Yes, sir.
So I'll entertain a motion to amend agenda item 14 from discussion action RFP 2023-01, purchase to lease grader for the road department.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern? No. Commissioner Trio?
Yes.
Chairman Moore?
Yes. Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to, or any further discussion on the lease?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to approve going, how do I word that? Approve going out to obtain a lease for a tandem grader for the road department.
So moved.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Tria
Yes.
and Chairman Moore.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Glenn, I do have another question. So I know that we were struggling with the proper equipment to clear the snow when we had those big snowstorms on the airport. I'm just curious, is this grader, is it gonna be that, or is it for totally different purposes?
This grader is the Springer,
Okay.
French Track, Miami area.
Okay.
It was on.
I was just curious.
And the leases.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 15, discussion action, road department administrative assistant job.
Commission, ladies and gentlemen, what we are proposing today, I think, is a very reasonable accommodation for our road and bridge department. I have had numerous conversations with the road superintendent concerning an administrative assistant and the need for one. And in just a minute, I'm going to have a Glenn comment on that as well. But what we are proposing to the commission today is to take one position, a road operator position, which is at $18 an hour, and convert that to a full-time administrative assistant position at about $16.40 an hour. That will help Glenn. Glenn, like I said, Glenn and I have had numerous discussions about this. Right now, this is where he needs the help. And all due respect, he needs his help now. So I think this is a reasonable request at this time. And I would like to have the commission approve that. Glenn, do you have anything to add?
I'd just like to say that when I first got this position, Manager Gore expressed he would give me the help I needed for the road department. I felt like I wanted to start the job and be positive of what is needed in the department. After about a month and a half, I was absolutely positive, with no doubt, that the entire office duties were very overwhelming. At that point, working together with Manager Gore, we started working on a solution to solve the situation at hand. I also did decide that I feel this is the weakest link with the road department at the current moment. We are extremely busy and need to speed up the job duties that we currently have to do. We have 5 state projects at the moment, and I recently put in for this year's. 3 are gravel projects, which have to be supervised at all times and have extreme documentation daily that is required by the state agreement contract. And looking at the near future, have an office administrative assistant would tremendously be needed for the road department, I feel.
Any other questions from the commission?
If we take away and bring on this position from your current, or are we going to still be able to upkeep the current roads for this position?
I feel that we need an administrative assistant at this moment. Like I had spoke with Manager Gore. I do have a couple or 3 guys that kind of do everything. And if I need to, I can always pull one of them to run a grader or loader or backhoe, whatever needs to be done. We are short-handed operator-wise, but I feel that our weakest link basically is the office. There's a big gap between me and the operator. I hired a new guy right at the end of December. And I mean, he's constantly every day, check the roads that I graded and see what they look like. Let me know, if I need to improve. He said, I want to do a good job. And I've been so tied up, to be honest, with the office, it's hard for me to get out there and see what's actually going on. And that way I can work out in the field more and supervise what's going on, in the job duties day to day.
Glenn, how long have you had that operator position open?
Since January, about mid-January.
Any other questions?
Glenn, have you filled your number 2 position yet, your assistant?
I have.
And Robert Thompson, as the former road superintendent, I can attest, yes, there do need to be somebody in that office all the time. I was lucky enough to have Glenn as an assistant, so he could go out in the field, I could take phone calls, or we could vice versa, and I can understand where he's coming from. He definitely needs somebody in that office to do with the paperwork and phone calls that come in every day.
So Glenn, I just want to clarify for the record that we are not adding an FTE. This is just a reclassification of a current FTE. And obviously, since we're reducing that FTE's salary or hourly rate, then it would definitely be within budget.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Kerr?
Yes.
Mr. Trillo?
Yes.
Chairman Linder?
Yes.
Thank you.
Brett.
Thank you.
Good luck finding somebody. I'm serious.
I feel so sorry for you.
You can wipe your forehead down.
Thank you.
Item 16, discussion action of grant writer, special projects coordinator, job description. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And once again, I will state unequivocally that I think a projects coordinator and a grant writer is something that the county needs at this time. There are a lot of state and federal funds out there that we don't have the staff or the currently access. And not only getting a grant, but managing the grant, doing reporting requirements required by the grant, making sure that we are spending the money appropriately in that grant, and following all the requirements and all the requests that we are following it. So this is actually grant management. We have another deal today for the commission. I have recently had a vacancy within the manager's office. And so I would like to propose that we hire this position, or actually replace this position. And once again, we would not be asking for another body. This would be essentially using an open position that we currently have and replacing that position with a grant writer, something that I think we need and I think the commission feels we need. I know in previous conversations, there was discussion about getting a grant writer, and in looking into that, I don't think the county's ever seriously taken that, trying to get somebody like that. I know in talking and checking with some of my staff, I think it was Patricia had a free grant writer, and I don't think the results were anything that was real positive. So once again, the old adage, you get what you pay for, I think comes to light. And at this point, I talked to the financial specialist. She's in favor of it as well. I think that the commission should be in favor of this. This opens a lot of doors of opportunity for Colfax County, and I think we'll take advantage of that. I think this would be a huge benefit to the citizens of Colfax County. And with that said, I would recommend that once again, we hire this grant writer Special Projects Coordinator to replace a position that has been vacated within the manager's office.
Any questions from the commission?
I just have one. I know the financial specialist currently does the grant reporting. Would that job description change, or how much of that is going to be shifted over to this new position?
You know, we'll certainly look at that if this position is approved, and we'll go from there. Commissioner.
So,
What position are you replacing? Are we gonna hear in 3 months that you need to replace the position you're now taking over with another listing?
The position that we're replacing is the former procurement officer.
just for clarification, we moved those responsibilities to a different role when the procurement officer went on maternity leave and subsequently resigned.
So essentially, the question, I guess, is the county manager's office is able to upkeep with their current workload and still bring on this position. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a good question, Commissioner Trujillo. And I actually met with my entire staff and looked at this, explained what we were doing, some of the reorganization of the manager's office. And I have 100% support from my staff that we can make this happen. So to answer your question, that's yes.
Thank you. So the only, if there's no further questions.
I just have one comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I know, like I had stated in an email, I know you've changed around a lot of the job duties and that. I do think that we need to update the job descriptions of those employees of the manager's office, especially in light if this is approved. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I do think that right now the manager's office is in quite a bit of transition with some of the changes we've had, turnover and so on. So it'd probably be a good endeavor to go and make sure that job descriptions are updated. My final question on this is just assure, on the salary range on this, I think it's a little higher than the previous salary range for the FTE that you're replacing. I just want to make sure from our financial specialist that this is going to fit within the current budget and that we don't see impacting significantly future budgets.
So first of all of our job descriptions are current. There's no changes on any of our job descriptions. Our current job descriptions. The CPO is still going to do the accounts payable, which is how it was designed. The E911 addressing and the solid waste is still going to have that same job description. That is included. As far as my understanding is, Commissioner Kern is correct. I do actually track a lot of the grants, and I don't think that it's in the intent of this position to track the grants. I will still maintain that. So my job description will not change. However, yes, you are correct. This position is budgeted a little bit higher. However, whenever we switched positions between the accounts payable clerk and the chief procurement officer, that salary was budgeted higher than what the current salary is being paid now. And then also the solid waste coordinator and the E911 addressing was also budgeted higher than what is being paid now. So there was a little bit of room to adjust the salaries.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the job description for a special projects coordinator.
So moved.
Friendly amendment to that, I think, I'd like to add that it is switching an FTE and not creating a new FTE, if you wouldn't mind putting that in the motion, sir. And I'll second it.
All right, so you made the motion, so you have to accept the friendly amendment.
I'll accept.
We have a friendly amendment that will require this position to not create a new FTE. It was accepted by the commissioner making the motion. So now it stands as a single motion, and if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trinka?
Yes.
Chairman Linder?
Yes. Okay, item 17, discussion action on resolution 2023-12, opposing the listing of the lesser prairie chicken as an endangered species. And we have a couple of guests that have zoomed into the meeting to speak on this topic. Or maybe it's just you, Mr. Williams. I wasn't sure if what's her name was going to appear or not. But anyhow, we have Williams on the Zoom meeting. So, Mr. Williams, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you could comment. We don't have any sound. Are you muted?
No, Mr. Williams is not.
Yeah, we still can't hear you. Give us just a minute. Do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this topic? Maybe while IT is trying to get the sound working. Mayor Lopez. I'll recognize Mayor Lopez.
So I'm here to speak on behalf of Colfax County Farm Bureau and the Northeastern New Mexico Livestock Association that we respectfully oppose the recent endangered listing of the lesser prairie chicken as the population has proven to be stable. Although there are year-to-year fluctuations in the lesser prairie chicken population counts, the Fish and Wildlife Service has acknowledged that these fluctuations are primarily due to weather conditions like drought, a factor that no one can control and upon which a listing decision will have no effect. A listing won't improve drought conditions. For years, private landowners in the industry have worked tirelessly through voluntary conservation programs to develop and improve lesser prairie chicken habitat. An endangered listing will dramatically impact how our private landowners can utilize their property, which is their largest business asset. Instead of designating the lesser prairie chicken as endangered, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service should continue to work with stakeholders to expand and invest in additional habitat conservation programs that have a proven record of benefiting the lesser prairie chicken. Agriculture-related inputs and value-added industries contribute $1.89 billion to the economies of the 6 counties that make up the southern area for various lesser prairie chicken habitat. These industries directly employ and support many jobs in the affected counties and directly support economic activity in our rural communities. In these 6 counties, Chavez, Lee, Eddy, Blanca, Prairie, and Roosevelt, there are 3,231 family farms and ranch operations representing approximately 13% of the total farm and ranches in Mexico. So I know some of you are going to question that why would be opposed to it when it just touches the southeast corner of Colfax County with the historic range, not the currently proposed range. What we've seen in the past is that, for example, with the Mexican gray wolf,
they told us that the habitat would stay south of I-40. Well, since the wolves have migrated north of I-40, but instead of trapping the wolves and relocating them back to the areas, they're just proposing to increase their area of range. So I'm sure it won't be in the far future that we will be faced with some of these same concerns because we have been in historic range for lesser prairie chicken. And with those comments, we stand opposed to them. That, of course, listing the lesser prairie chicken, but it's already been designated as endangered. But I would wholeheartedly ask the commission to consider to put this resolution in place for when future things come like this and the expansion of the area for the lesser prairie chicken. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions for me?
Do you have a copy of that map?
Yeah, so I brought multiple copies of the different maps I'll give you guys.
Thank you.
I don't know who all
Do
wants.
we have any other public
Thank you,
comments?
Yeah.
Any other public comments there?
And then these are the other ones, like on those working groups that they're talking about, with extensions to them, so it's a matter of time.
Thank you.
Still muted? Okay, go unmute yourself on the Zoom.
Well, they're still working on that. New Mexico Cattle Growers and New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau are also opposed, in conjunction with the County Farm Bureau and Northeastern New Mexico Livestock Association.
So, how much time do you need?
Yeah, so, you know what, we'll give you a call real quick. Give you a call on the phone. Can we just call him on the phone?
Can you have two people?
Jim's listening. Yeah. That's-
Morning, Mr. Williams, how are you?
I'm doing well. Just turn on the video again.
No, I think we're gonna give up on the video, or do you have a presentation, or is it just verbal?
It's just verbal.
All right, so I think you have the floor, and if you could go ahead.
Okay, I don't know what role you guys have for me today. I'm the Dept County Manager, and about all I can do is tell you why the Chatham County Commission chose to pass the resolution opposing the implementation of the cycle rules of the last encouragement. Is that kind of what you were hoping that I could bring?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, so, as Chatham County and a large portion of eastern, New Mexico, West Texas, are in the state population section number 2 of the DPS of the Lesser Prairie Chicken. The northern portion is kind of arbitrary line of Fish and Wildlife Service data that includes Kansas, Oklahoma, other areas further north, there's a little piece of Colorado conservation feels that the production of food, fiber, timber, and minerals off of land is probably the most important thing that we can provide to our state. Private property rights are very important to us. I know that in Chatham County, 47% of our land, or 60% of our land, 47% statewide, are taken up by state and federal land. So anytime something prohibits us from moving forward, there's private industry, farming, ranching, that kind of thing, we're very concerned about it. So we feel as if in 2014, Chatham County joined the Indigent Petroleum Association of others, and successfully Fish and Wildlife was trying to lift the electric prairie chicken at that time. They lost that case and had to go back and could not lift the prairie chicken because it didn't meet criteria designated by the federal government. So they went back and, in our opinion, kind of moved it also. They did, even though the prairie chicken had population that increased across the range, they just divided into two distinct population sets. So the people down south where it's drier, the prairie chicken historically has a boom and bust kind of activity where when it's a wet year, they're like quail, they really produce well in dry years, they make raw, there's a whole lot less to deal with. Up north where it's raining, populations are huge. In fact, in areas where we still hunt prairie chicken, in fact, maybe not less of prairie chicken, but prairie chicken. Here in New Mexico, where it's been a lot drier, so our population, although up, is not up to whatever arbitrary percentage or number that they decide they need to be, we've had a little trouble getting those numbers, getting the designated lines where the critical habitat to be located, those kind of things, and short range critical habitat, they've been not very forthcoming with that. So anyway, we decided that we don't believe in the validity of the claim that there's distinct population segments and there's no genetic differences. There's been numerous studies in this done where the facts in the line of what Fish and Wildlife was trying to do. So they chose to call two distinct population segments. To me, that's a lot like saying I've got a ranch, I've got a pond on one end of the ranch and another pond on the other end of the ranch. There's sheep heads in on both ponds. While north end of the ranch is raised, the pond stays full, the fish produce really well. The south end of the ranch, there's a whole lot less rainfall, so of course the numbers are going to drop on the sheep heads. We don't see in their nature. Next week it's going to rain down south and they're going to continue to increase as well to kind of blunt the nature. So we feel like that's kind of the same thing with the lesser prairie chicken. And we don't feel that they should be listing it at this time. We feel it's just another one of those acts on farming and ranching and production of food fiber and mineral fiber in our country. We see what happens when you leave forest unattended, and then we want to say you can't raise cattle anymore because there's not enough grass. But we clearly overstored it and like it down grass. So those are kind of some of the factors that our commission took into account when they chose to appoint the limited standard question.
Do we have any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Williams. We appreciate your input. I did feel that it was important to have somebody represent one of the counties that's more heavily affected to get their insight in this decision-making process. So I thank you for taking the time to speak to Colfax County Commission. Are there any other questions from the commission?
I have some questions. How did this come to get on the agenda, just since there's no lesser prairie chicken in Colfax County?
This came to get on the agenda because there is a coalition of counties that are opposing this. And through New Mexico, I guess in part through New Mexico counties, they contacted us since the range does go on the very southeastern tip of Colfax County to see if we would help them in their endeavor to prevent this from occurring.
And I'll state, I know in my previous occupations, I've worked in the oil and gas industry. We have been affected by the lesser prairie chicken, as far as having to shut down operations and stuff like that during the mating season. I do feel like businesses do adjust. I'm willing to support this with the other, supporting the other counties, the Cattle Growers Association, and more so just so for the historic push, if that's kind of the next thing, I can understand that. So that's all
Commissioner Kern?
No, I agree with Commissioner Trujillo, and I would move to approve Resolution 2023-12, proposing the listing of the lesser prairie chicken as an endangered species.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern,
Yes.
Commissioner Trujillo,
Yes.
Chairman Moore.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Uh-huh. June, are you still on the phone?
No, you got cut out. You can call back in.
Can we get June back on the phone? Tim, do you know his number?
Number.
Mario's not here? Okay.
I'm asking the comments.
All right. All right, let's go ahead and proceed. Next on the agenda, item 18, discussion action, resolution 2023-13, creation of a Colfax County Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Tom Hill again. First off, I need to make a correction. The first main line, whereas section 4-51-1, that should read 4-57. I apologize for that error. Just to cover Article 57, since that wasn't included in there. Article 57 allows for the creation of a planning commission under New Mexico statutes. Section 1, any county may, by ordinance, establish a planning commission. County planning commission shall consist of not less than 5 members who shall be appointed by a county commission. Administrative officials of the county may be appointed as ex officio non-voting members of the planning commission. Under powers and duties of the commission, the county planning commission shall have such powers as they are necessary and proper to carry out and promote county planning. Such planning shall be made with the general purpose of guiding and accomplishing a coordinated and adjusted harmonious development of the county, which will, in accordance with existing and future needs, best promote health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or the general welfare, as well as efficiency and economy in the process of development. B, county planning commission may.
Hold on one second. June, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Vigo, please continue.
Yes, part B, county planning commission may, 1, make reports and recommendations for the planning and development of the county to any other individual, partnership, firm, public or private corporation, association, trust, estate, political subdivision, or agency of the state or any other legal entity and their legal representatives, agents, or assigned. 2, recommend to the administrative and governing officials of the county programs for public improvement and financing. And then the final part 3, planning jurisdiction. Each county shall have exclusive planning jurisdiction within its county boundary, except as to area exclusively within the planning and planning jurisdiction of a municipality, and except as to those areas where a county and a municipality may have concurrent jurisdiction, as now may herein be provided by law. So I do apologize for that, but again, need to amend where it says section 4-51-1, that needs to read 4-57-1.
Any questions from the commission?
This is just establishing a zoning committee, right? Not ordinance or ordinances or anything like that.
Well, yeah, so this would be to establish the zoning commission per New Mexico state law. And we go through that process. This actually, at this point, does not set up any, this action, doesn't set up any zoning ordinances or any type of requirements. It's simply the establishment of the commission at this point.
That's
Am I
correct. This would be a first step towards potential development of any sort of planning and zoning within the county. But it basically provides the structural framework to bring in that consultation, which would be made up of individuals within the county, as well as the potential administrative flow coming up with a plan and then presenting it before the commission.
Any other questions?
Is this for the unincorporated areas or?
Yes, sir. This would cover all unincorporated areas of Colfax County.
And for all construction and development, everything?
As to what would be decided by the committee, those could be included, those may not be included. It's really just setting up a committee to look into the potential of what planning and zoning might be within the needs of Colfax County.
And the cities, the villages that are already incorporated would fall outside of it since they already have their own planning.
That's correct, sir. Under Article 57, municipalities are in charge of their own jurisdiction. It would also exclude the XTZ, extraterritorial zone around the city of Raton, since that's a concurrent jurisdiction between the city and the county.
So this would also include private property as far as ranches, farms, everything.
All in unincorporated areas of Colfax County, sir.
And we respectfully decline and want nothing to do with it. It's been under mass discussion in our area and several others. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Beal, if you would, just quickly, if you could reiterate, I know you did this in a prior presentation, but just reiterate some of the reasons that we are, the commission is considering.
Sure. So, in the big picture, the county currently has zero input or zero tracking ability to what happens within the rural sections of Colfax County. As a result, a lot of things go under the radar. In particular, a lot of things go built out of compliance, out of code. Even though the umbrella of State Construction's division has its construction codes, there's plenty of people that don't abide by that. And we have zero ability to do anything at this point, because the only control that the county has is the subdivision code. The most direct example is the Calf Canyon fires. San Miguel and Moore County are especially suffering through the recovery process. Basically, someone will suffer a loss of a structure or a piece of land. They're submitting to FEMA for reimbursement on that. FEMA's coming back, going to the county and saying, well, first off, you guys even know this structure existed. And quite a few of these structures, the county shrugs and says, we had no clue it was even there. Then FEMA then approaches the property owner and says, well, do you have any documentation showing this thing was built to any sort of acceptable code, compliance, anything like that? The property owner is unable to supply that as well. So this creates an absolute nightmare for that individual, that property owner, because FEMA's rejecting those claims. They're saying if it's not on the books, it's not something recognized by the government, there's nothing we can do about it. So that's a loss to the individual, that's a loss to that landowner. So part of this, in my anticipation, is protection for future landowners for any other significant loss later on down the road. I pursue this from the emergency management perspective. And as far as county tracking purposes, there's certainly, I know, Joe, you can probably attest to how many you even estimate are off the books right now.
It does happen. There are properties that go unaccounted for because landowners don't get a building permit from the state. They'll do their own construction themselves. we just happen to stumble upon it when we do reevaluations of subdivisions or unincorporated areas.
Exactly, and so it comes down to equity. There are folks that are getting away with not paying their fair share, and that's really all we ask of people, or we should ask of people, is just pay your fair share. There's multiple ways to approach this. This would be up to the commission itself to develop what sort of approach they want to go with Colfax County. In a previous presentation, I listed a number of those. They could be including full building codes compliance with inspections. Most counties our size stay away from that model because it's bulky and it costs a lot and it's not fun to do. The model that I proposed would actually be a land use zoning approach, which is quite common with counties our size. Basically, it's not concerned with the actual structure, code compliance, anything like that. That still falls on state construction. Instead, it's looking at proper land development and whether that's promoting development in a certain area or what areas we don't want to promote development. What areas we want to leave as that rural residential. San Miguel County, for example, through their planning commission, they zoned out the entire county and they determined certain areas with feedback from the residents of those areas saying, we don't want infill, we don't want more people out here. And so they zone that area according to the desires of those residents. So for example, there may be an area within San Miguel County where new construction is restricted to 1 house per 10 acres, or 1 house per 20 acres, or 1 house per 50 acres. That way you prevent infill from coming in. And then other areas where the residents, we want more houses, we want more construction, we want more people here, then the county can promote that by reducing that number and saying, all right, we're allowing 1 house per acre, 1 house per quarter acre. And so by pursuing it from that land use perspective, we're able to help promote prosperity in the county, promote those ideals, whether those are historic cultural values of staying out in the ranchitos or economic development as well. So my proposal, just what I presented, is not a matter of control and restriction. It's a matter of having a commission that hears, and a planning and zoning commission is what I'm referring to, a commission that hears from the residents for each one of those zones of what they want, and then the county acting accordingly to create a plan for that area as far as future land use.
Any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Kern?
Will this planning and zoning commission track new building projects?
Again, it depends on what they develop. So what I presented on the last meeting, under San Miguel County, again, I fall back on them just because I like their system quite a bit. But they actually created a small planning and zoning office that works as a full-time office within the county. They respond to the planning commission as well as to the county commission. In that zoning office, they created an intake form. And it doesn't create anything substantially new as far as regulation on the county side. Instead, a person comes into the county office and applies for a development permit is what they call it. And there's a fee attached with that development permit. And from then on, that document lists a series of check marks that property owner needs to follow in order to get an approved development permit. And so that's going to include questions like, have you applied to state CID for a construction permit? Have you gotten the necessary inspections? If you're putting in a well system, have you approached New Mexico Environmental Department and state engineers? Putting in a septic system, have you approached New Mexico Environmental Department? Have you applied for an E911 address? Have you applied for solid waste removal? Have you talked with the assessor's office to make sure the house is on the tax rolls? And so it's basically a checkbox of everything that already exists within the system, but it's just the one-stop shop within the county that gathers all that information, and then we can disseminate that out to the other offices. And so I know in San Miguel County, On a monthly basis, that planning and zoning department has the stack of all their new approved permits, and they hand it out to the assessor's office, to the treasurer's office, to the clerk's office. That way, everyone has the same document of this is the tracking of what's going on.
Thank you.
And then, Manager Behill, the question I have is how does this affect current structures that are in place today or maybe mid-construction today?
So right now, this resolution is just creation of a committee. It's not creation of any new rules, procedures, anything like that. It's creation of a committee to start looking at what the county needs and how to proceed. So until the commission comes up with a plan, there's nothing as far as changes in regards to building codes, ordinances, planning and zoning within Colfax County. And by best guess estimates, if you started a commission with this resolution, you're probably not going to see a first proposal for at least a year, possibly 2 years. Because there's a lot of things that come into that development. It most likely will require that commission searching funds to hire an actual land development specialist to come in and consult, looking at Colfax County, good ways to divide things up, good ways to start this approach.
And Manager Behill, if this commission, through their process of discovery, determines that zoning ordinance or not, or zoning plan is not the best outcome for Colfax County, it could be disseminated and.
Oh, certainly, yeah. It could be, they meet for a year, they come up with a couple drafts, none of them are efficient, and decide no action at this time, and the committee could be dissolved.
Okay. Any other questions? No? All right, I entertain a motion to approve the creation of the Colfax County Planning and Zoning Commission.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the creation of the Colfax County Planning and Zoning Commission. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern, Commissioner Trinidad.
Yes.
Yes.
One question now, who's gonna be responsible? Is it you, Tom, or the manager's office, or what, for actually assembling this? I'm gonna call it a committee because I'm the confusion between commission and committees, but what's the next step? Who's gonna spearhead this?
I would say the original intention was probably me still driving that, with the other changes going on. If anyone else in the county wants to step up, since I have 2 full-time jobs right now, I would certainly relinquish that. I'll still be available for consultation and discussion on this, but I don't think I can right now be in the driver's seat with assuming the fire marshal position currently.
That's kind of what I was leading to. Thank you.
Okay, item 19, discussion action on ordinance 2023-02, Colfax County adopting building and construction codes.
That's me again. So this goes back to some of those other questions that all led to this homework assignment for me. This ordinance, again, doesn't create anything new existing in the system. What it does is it recognizes, get back to my reference points. It recognizes New Mexico NMSA building codes as one and the same for Colfax County. So there's already a set of building codes established by the state of New Mexico. Those are enforced through New Mexico Construction Industries Division. All this does is the county recognizing those codes exist. State of New Mexico has the authority for enforcement of that, and it's county officially adopting one and the same and recognizing the authority of the state of New Mexico to enforce those building codes. It's kind of It doesn't have any teeth as far as the county's concerned. It gives us no enforcement ability, but it does give us the ability to say we have adopted construction codes in our county. And this would be a first step if there is a future planning and zoning, larger scale project happening. Otherwise, it would involve development of our own individualized construction codes, which may or may not mirror the state. But by doing it this way, we aren't creating any additional burden on the property owners in this county. It's already what's enforced by state statute. And so we're just recognizing the state statute.
So state statute and no more than that.
Correct.
Thank you.
No, I'm fine with that, and I do think it's important that we recognize that that is what our guidelines are. But to introduce an ordinance, we have to advertise for 30 days, so we can't approve this today. All we can do is take action to introduce it.
So, Madam Commissioner, I mean, it was practice with ordinances that I experienced here. There's actually an additional step that the county takes, or has taken since I've been on the commission, that other government agencies have involved with do not take, which is the step of the introduction of the idea of an ordinance. And that's what this step is intended to be. So basically, this step is not required by state statute. State statute requires advertising, requires public hearings, and I believe it has to be voted on, or it has to be read once and then voted on at a later date after a certain amount of time has passed. I don't have them all clear in my head right now, but what the county did, and what I noticed, is that they had an additional step. They introduced it as a concept, as a potential ordinance. And then the commission said, okay, we want to move forward with the process of processing this ordinance. And so that was the intent of this step, is basically to say, this is an ordinance that does the commission want to even initiate the ordinance process with? And you're right, there are rules. There has to be public hearings, there has to be written notifications, and so on. And so this is just that initial step that the county has taken with other ordinances in the past 2 years. And this says, does the commission want to move forward or not? Because if you say no, we're not even going to initiate the ordinance process at this point. We're not approving the ordinance. It's simply a decision made by the commission to move forward with this ordinance or not.
June, would you concur on all that?
Yes, sir. I think the way Kim and Peter say, it's just tied to this inducement, the thing that we are going to get better later for the public hearing. So I was not doing go binding and just put the action at this time, and then maybe later have a particular item that we're going to consider and go through the initial requirements about the ability, and then also about the ability to public hearing issues at this time.
Thank you.
So are there any other?
Yeah, and I know we're splitting hairs in that we're all on the same page, but my question is the way it's advertised and what it reads is that, you know, I just think it should have been advertised as introduction or discussion, because what's in the packet in that, it appears that we're approving an ordinance to me.
So I think it's all going to be in how the motion is made. So this is an action discussion on this ordinance. The ordinance was provided in the packet so that you would be able to read the ordinance and see what was intended. And the motion should be to pursue this ordinance or not to pursue this ordinance. To, you know, approve the processing of this ordinance or not. It's not to approve the ordinance itself. So, with that said, I will entertain a motion to begin the proceedings on ordinance number 2023-02.
Would you make the motion as how you see it?
I'm sorry?
Would you make the motion on how you would say it, as far as with the ordinance, and so, with it not being an ordinance? As far as just pursuing the thought of it?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I would make that motion then of the, looking at not really pursuing the, make a motion to pursue the ordinance, not adopting it.
Not correct.
Sir, would it be accept introduction of the ordinance?
The introduction
Could that be an appropriate term?
could be terminology. You could say it's an introduction. Terminate of the ordinance. But we do have a motion. Do we have a second?
If you incorporate what Tom says. You want to read it back?
Yeah.
Clerk, please? So everybody's clear,
To pursue the introduction of the ordinance,
sure,
that's
without naming any numbers of that, because it
Right.
could,
Correct.
yeah, just, okay.
Thank you both.
So was that a second, Madam Commissioner? Okay, so we have a motion and a second on ordinance, on the introduction of the proceeding of ordinance number 2023-02, the Colfax County adopting building and construction codes. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern.
Yes.
Commissioner Trujillo.
Yes.
Chairman Moore.
Yes.
Maybe.
Thank you, Manager Reno. Okay. Next is item 20, approve the bylaws for Colfax County Airport Advisory Board. So, I don't know, 2 months ago, I don't remember what, the last meeting of the advisory committee, it's not a board, it's a committee, but in the last airport advisory committee, the committee wanted to make some changes to the bylaws because the committee had a historical practice of having a committee person appointed by the commission, and then they had an alternate. But the bylaws did not call for an alternate. There was no language that allowed for an alternate. And I know the vice chair of the committee, when I asked for this to be straightened out, accused me basically of being a communist. I just thought if you're practicing something, it would be a better idea to have it in the bylaws so the bylaws confirm your practice. And so they went and made some recommended changes to the bylaws. And the changes basically are now naming a primary representative and an alternate. They went further to include language for proxy voting. And that is basically what the changes to the bylaws incorporated was naming of the ability to have an alternate at each of the voting members, and also to allow proxy voting. Are there any questions from the commission?
I have a question. If you have an alternate available, what's the purpose of a proxy vote? I don't see the.
Madam Commissioner, I agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, I was gonna, before you got, I was waiting to give you your opportunity to comment before I made mine, but my recommendation is to strike the language for proxy voting. I think, number one, when you have a proxy vote, So it states in here you have to have 3 people to have a quorum. 3 of the 5 members have to be in attendance to provide a quorum. So that means that 2 members could have, give their proxies to one of the 3 in attendance, and that person would then have a potential of 3 votes, and that person's vote ultimately would negate the other 2 votes. The way this language is set up, which I think is inappropriate. The other thing is if you have a primary and an alternate and both of them can't show up to a meeting that, you know, we're only required to have quarterly. We do have them more frequently, but they're only required to have quarterly. It just seems like one of your 2 alternates should show up in order for you to be eligible to vote, in my opinion. And finally, my concern is that in these meetings, I've attended many, there is often very good discussion and knowledge that is transferred in these meetings, things that are brought up. And with a proxy vote, somebody's voting on that, or they're giving their vote to somebody without knowing, without having the opportunity to hear that discussion and to obtain that knowledge that may change their vote. And so, although I'm not a communist and I'm in favor of having alternates, I don't think proxy voting is necessary. So with that, I would recommend, and I have a markup version, but I don't know how to tell you all where the markings are. But there is basically 2 places in this that discuss proxy voting, and I would have those stricken from the bylaws.
I would agree with that, Chairman Ware. I just don't see the need for proxy in the 6 years that I was on the Airport Advisory Board. You're right, it is an extremely valuable group. They have a tremendous amount of aviation knowledge. We made every accommodation available to include members. If they weren't out of town, they would be able to call in and stuff. So I don't see the need for the proxy. I think between having the designated person and the alternate, it's not necessary. My question is, the alternates, will they be vetted the same as the advisory members are?
Yes.
And, okay, and
So by vetted, they would be approved by the commission.
right. Okay, and this version that is presented that was part of our packet was approved by the advisory committee, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So my question is, do we need to, should we strike those things and table this, or do we need to get their feedback back?
Well, you know, as I was told multiple times in these meetings, the final decision on anything is the commission. And
So we're just striking just the proxies.
just the language concerning proxies, which is about 4 sentences, maybe 5. Ish.
I would have another question, and maybe we could consider just postponing the vote on this until next time and get it cleaned up, because we're having a problem between what's being advertised and what's being presented. Here we have a resolution that is in the packet, but on the agenda, we're approving bylaws. So the resolution number for that is not part of the agenda, and I just don't, I think we can be a little bit more detailed and transparent in it. So I would offer up that we postpone the vote on this, clean it up to take out proxy, and clean up the action on the agenda.
And, you know, it's up to the commission as to whether we want to postpone the vote on this. My only concern is that we have a meeting a day after tomorrow, and that meeting may not have quorum without this, and that I know of at least 1, potentially 2 people that are relying on their alternates, that this pass in this meeting, and that, their alternates will be in attendance in that meeting in 2 days. To me, and by the way, I referred to it as bylaws when I was requesting this to be put on the agenda. At that point, I guess the manager's office did not have the resolution in front of them. To me, the resolution is actually amending the bylaws. The bylaws is a term that could be interchanged with, this description, the responsibilities of the advisory committee. I did approach legal counsel. Mr. Manager, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, June, if you would want to confirm, we did call you, and I think at that time, looked at whether we should use verbiage for resolution versus bylaws, and the advice and recommendation was just go forward with bylaws. Are you there, Jim?
Chair, I think that we adopted a resolution in 2022, number 7. We have a resolution to approve and then regulate and supervise and report of that scheme at the time. So the key is resolution approved by
So in other words, Jim, you're confirming that we're not going to be breaking any Open Meetings Act rules by proceeding on a vote on this item?
I think we've already stated that, action item is whether or not the approval, not approved by law, right?
Right.
It needs to be consistent with our public statement, saying that we're going to approve or not approve by law, by the advisory board, because the Corporate County Commission has already obtained the power to regulate the advisory board in the previous resolution we had.
So one thing, I don't want to pass this resolution, so we'll have a meeting on Thursday. So that's my kind of thought there. I would kind of like to reread it as the stroke out provisions. So and we need to get better on the agenda as far as the verbiage and making sure that it's perfectly clear in discussing with that. So I'll make a motion to postpone this to the next meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to postpone. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Kern?
Yes.
Mr. Trillo?
Yes.
Chairman White?
No. Madam Clerk, please note the opposition. Okay. Next on the agenda, give me just a second. Next on the agenda is the discussion action to approve appointed Colfax County Airport Advisory Board members. I'm not sure that it makes sense for us to proceed with that, Mr. Manager, unless you believe differently, because those board members, we did have organizations that submitted us who their primary and their alternates were, so that we could approve them. But since we didn't pass the ordinance, I don't think it makes sense to approve them, because we could only approve the primary, not the alternates at this point. I do want to take this chance to say that in the resolution or bylaws, it does state that the commission every 2 years, in odd years, will readdress the committee membership. And so as part of that, what I would like to recommend to the committee members and is that they go through the process of getting reappointed. And then I guess we're going to have at the next meeting, then we can have all new committee members approved by the commission. Since we're going to a primary and an alternate, we've never done an alternate before. We've never approved the alternates before. Then I think it would be best for them to all go through the process of getting reappointed by whoever reappoints them. For the committee itself, this means in the meeting in 2 days, the committee, because we have an at-large that is appointed by the committee, and that at-large hopefully will have an alternate in the future. So my recommendation is that in the meeting day after tomorrow, the committee appoint the at-large person with an alternate, and that the 2 municipal governments that are parts of this committee go to their governing bodies and have their primary, their alternates approved by their governing bodies. And then the commission also has, historically, it's been the manager. So the commission will need to appoint an alternate. We can do that in the same meeting. And then the resort, which is already submitted to the commission, who their primary and alternates are, we'll just carry that into the next meeting. But I think at this point, we can either make a motion to postpone item 21, or we can take no action at all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I recommend also that you guys get the names to the county clerk's office so that we can make sure that they are registered voters?
Great idea.
Because they have to be registered voters in order to sit on it. And I don't believe we received any names prior to today.
So we're going to make motions.
Also, when those come in for their letters of interest with their background or whatever, be part of the packet so we can review that.
So we're going to make a motion to postpone? No action?
I mean, either way is fine.
So I'll call for a motion.
Yeah, let's postpone. Yes.
You're making a motion to postpone?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yes.
I have a motion and a second, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern?
Yes.
Commissioner Trujillo?
Yes.
Chairman Moore?
Yes. Okay, item 22. Discuss action, failure to notify affected entities. So as you're all aware, anybody that follows this county, we've had an ongoing issue with a legal battle in the county in relation to property taxes assessed to to a property. And this legal battle, which did not end in our favor, has brought up a lot of issues in the county. It's created some hardship for some of our government agencies, and it basically has been a challenge. And what my intent was to have this on the agenda is we've had some, because there was potential legal issues, we have had some executive sessions where items were discussed and information was asked for. Now that all that information is here, I think it's fair to bring this before the public and make the public aware of what the ongoings were and what the effect of those are. And at the end of this discussion, I would like to see the commission take some action to assist the government agencies that were affected by this. We will need to discuss what those actions might be. But to begin with, I'm going to turn it over to the county manager and ask him to have a quick description of what occurred in this lawsuit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I will remind, first of all, of my email to the commission and to the treasurer's office and to the assessor's office on February the 23rd. What we might want to do, I'm sure we may have some responses from the treasurer and from the assessor's office. So I would invite you guys to come up to the podium if you'd like to. I would also like to thank the treasurer. Her and I have had a lot of different meetings on this in order to get an idea of what we present today as far as what happened. As you alluded to, Mr. Chairman, there was a court case that the county lost. And I'll just, in that email that I sent everybody as an advisory, I did say that the order finds in favor of the plaintiff, protesters, and states that the county assessor unlawfully changed the classification of the plaintiff's real property from agricultural use to non-residential use. So that was the court finding. In looking into this, looks like taxes were received from employee November of 2019 with the intent to protest. Taxes should have been placed in escrow, but they were not. The county clerk, treasurer, and an assessor were served sometime between December the 31st, 2019 and January the 15th. So once again, we had a county clerk, treasurer, and assessor beings all served. And I know like the clerk should not have been served. First case was dismissed on March 2020. And if the money would have been placed in escrow as it should have been, but was not in mid-2019, at this time the taxes would have been taken out of escrow and posted as a payment. At the end of the month, disbursements would not have been posted to those entities. So once again, even if the escrow was placed in, the money was placed in escrow, based on the fact that the case was dismissed in March 2020, the money would have been taken back out of escrow. The second case was filed in June 2020. At this time, the tax payment should have been completed and placed in escrow, which would have put the entities in the negative. And in my discussion with the Madam Treasurer, basically it wouldn't have made any difference at that time. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I'm saying what happened in, any of this that happened because it was dismissed in March, if Kathy would have put it in escrow in November of 19, we would have had to take it out of escrow in March and then pay those taxes, be dispersed at the end of March, and the entities would have gotten their money. And then in June, it would have been taken out again, and they would have been in the negative like they are. But the outcome of what happened in the court doesn't, it's not with what they were trying to fight, those values should have been changed. So I'm just saying, had everything been done properly in 19, we would have been in the negative, but then Manager Gore just said that the findings were different. So
Right. So
we just gotta fix it. I mean, I see the schools, and I know it's hard for everybody to understand. My chief deputy, Alfonso Ortiz, he did a spreadsheet showing what the schools they were in the negative, 20,653.45, the hospital, 9,534.53, Luna, 6,749.31, the state, 3,059.68, and the county, 26,659.78. Now, most of those have already kind of washed out. The only ones that, Luna, right now they are, right now, as of February, they're still in negative 4,102.47, because each month we still collect money, so the schools, I know, the school district was 20,000, so in January, we still collected 3,247.41, and the negative balance then is 16,816.04, which was. And then in February, it shows what we collected was, and the school has is the 2,060.47, and I had to adjust those figures manually. I've never seen a case like this. I did a few protests when I was treasurer from 5 to 12. The proper procedure happened. The assessor brought it over. I put it in suspense, invested the monies, and but this account, I mean, this was 16. This was a tough one. I've never seen this many, 16 or 17 accounts. Is that correct? 17? Yeah. So this is why the hardship. And right now, at the end of February, the schools are in the negative 14,755.57. And we won't know what we collect this month until the end of March. So I don't even know if they'll be seeing any positives until, I don't even know if April or May will make it, because our biggest collecting is in November, December, and usually January when my staff got it done in 2 months.
Could you give me those current negatives again, please? Make sure I got them right.
The negatives in Springer School Districts, 14,755.57. And then Luna, is 4,102.47.
Thank you. And the others?
In the hospital district.
The hospital district, because of their higher collections, they're already in.
And they also collect from other districts and stuff.
Right, so they're positive.
So they're negative positive, but there was still some that came out from there.
So essentially right now, Madam Treasurer, the only two affected in this right now is Luna, in the amount of, looks like 14,249, and the school, which is now been reduced from 20,063 to 14,000.
Negative 14,000.
Okay.
Mr. Manager, I just want to make a clarification. All three entities were affected.
Oh, everybody was affected. I mean,
These numbers are just based
These are
on
just the
the
negatives.
most recent disbursement, how negative is their account? So they didn't get anything in this last, well, except for maybe the hospital district. The other two didn't get any disbursements because, in the last disbursement, because they're now negative, right?
they're still in the negative. Luna and
Yeah.
that school
So,
will not be.
They got 0 in the last disbursement, which historically they do get an amount dispersed. I mean,
It's a little amount, but they still get.
they still get something.
Right.
And after getting no disbursement in this last one, they're still in the negative, which means that they're not going to get future disbursements. And the estimate is it may be as late as June,
Maybe till November.
maybe till November before they get another disbursement.
Yeah, because I mean, we've sent out courtesy letters, to collect on 20 taxes, so they don't go to the state, but it's very minimal. And I'll send some delinquent that are mandated by the state statute in May, but it doesn't guarantee we're gonna get payment. So yeah, this was a hardship on all of them, on all the districts.
Moving on, Mr. Chairman, January the 11th, 2023, the final decree order draft filed in favor of McCloy. As stated by the attorney representing Colfax County and the assessor, and kind of reiterating what Madam Treasurer said, this was a very unusual case. Once again, we had a case started, then a case dropped, and then the case restarted again, and then the county lost the case. As far as looking at what we could have done better as far as this process, we could have done a better job with communication. Unfortunately, with communication outcome, and there should have been money put in escrow, but. Like
This should not have taken 3 years. I mean, I've never seen this. It usually goes to the court and it's done. It's done like right away. The judge finds it and says yes or no, and it's over. But this was a lot of money, not just with what they lost, but what the county had to pay in fees. And then we still had to lose money. Because then the treasurer's office has to, you know, it always falls on the treasurer, the treasurer's office with money, because then we have to fix those assessments and get those payments down and then do the reimbursement.
So, continuing, Mr. Chairman, once again, as far as procedure, as far as what was done, money should have been put in escrow. However, the money would have had to have been taken back out. There should have been better communication. I think everybody is aware of that. But essentially, Madam Treasurer, with it being refiled, as far as the outcome, there wouldn't have been any change in the outcome, even if we had better communication and we had followed proper procedures for putting money into escrow, correct?
Yeah, I'm just saying the outcome, yeah. What the judge found, if it would have been properly assessed with what the judge is saying, whatever law was broken, then this wouldn't have happened. But it happened, we have to fix it, and I don't see it on these entities, that it's their fault. But, I mean, the county took a hit too. Everybody took a hit.
No, and I will have to agree, I think, in looking at our current county attorney, typically on cases like this, he is able to settle these in about 3 months. And so once again, there's a substantial savings to the county. And once again, I think one of the issues that the court brought up, once again, the court order found that the assessor did unlawfully change the classification of plaintiff's real property from the agricultural to non-residential. So that's a very strong statement by Judge Kennedy.
And in the past, it's always been that the assessor gets served, she brings it to me, lets me know what we have to void. I can't answer for Kathy why she didn't do it. I'm saddened by everything that has happened. But Joe and the chief deputy, Joseph Martin, and Christy, they know I took a small one to Christy the other day. I said, they're paying in protest, it was $150. I wasn't gonna change that out because it wasn't gonna cause, any of them that hadn't caused this much damage. But then she brings me the court papers when she gets served. And I do a file and invest the money.
Do we have any type of input from the assessor's office?
The assessor's office responsibility is to be fair and equitable. What the assessor thought she was doing was being fair and equitable. The landowner failed to do their procedure to apply for the agricultural special method evaluation, and by them failing to apply for that special method resulted in the removal of that land rate.
Do you have any questions on the timeline and what transpired from the commission?
I don't have any questions, thank you all. City information.
Do we have anybody, so this is kind of, to me, this is a two-phase kind of thing in my mind. This was what happened, right? And I think it's important for people to understand, for the public to understand that the reason that the entities were damaged, in my opinion, is because of the way basically government operates. And the county operates this way as well. We look at last year's revenue and we create a budget for this year based on last year's revenue. And so what happened was we had a property that was overtaxed. We can argue about the reasons and so on why, but the fact is they were overtaxed, the courts determined that. I'm sorry?
It was an unlawful reclassification as opposed to an excessive valuation.
Okay. So, according to the courts, it was unlawful
Unlawful reclassification.
reclassification.
As opposed to an excess valuation.
In any case, they were overtaxed. And because this process took 3 years, what happened is the entities got the overtaxed money. And that established a baseline for their budget for the next year, expecting to get that same money over this basically the same time frame. So they established a budget, and they went and spent their money, just like the county. We have a budget. We go and we spend our money based on that budget. And it actually happened the second year. It was, there was a budget established. And so when they went to spend the money on the budget this year, that they budgeted based on prior year numbers, that money is being taken out. So it's money that they have budgeted to expend, because most of the government agencies expend virtually all of their general fund money anyhow, the year that they receive it. Beyond the state requirements and for reserves and things of that nature. But most government agencies spend all their money, so they get a budget, they're expecting to get this money. They set a budget, they spend the money, and then because of this, the money is now being withheld from them. So they're not able to, let's say, uphold their budget because money they expected to get, which was established by prior years, they're not getting. And so to me, that's the process, the fact that it took so long and all of the steps, net, the outcome would have been the same, given the same judgment. Net, the amount of money that's being withheld would have been withheld anyhow. It just would have been withheld earlier. But having it being withheld earlier, they wouldn't have set a budget that was based on these prior receipts. So the damage is occurring this year because of the expectation to receive that revenue, at least in part.
They had received it, yeah, they had it for years and now they're paying for it. Now they're paying for it because it's of the outcome of the court.
I think there were some things, and I was hoping it would come up, so I didn't have to mention this, but the commission did look into, are there any requirements for the agencies that receive disbursements to get notification? And we could not find any state statute, nor do we have a policy that has those requirements. Now, I've asked the commission has asked the manager to start working on such policies of notification. So if money comes in that's being held in escrow, that there be some sort of notification to the agencies that may be affected. But those currently are not in place. And again, with the advice of our legal counsel, we couldn't find any state statute that required that type of notification.
And usually it's like 1,000, 3,000, I've never seen, again, 17. So when the assessor brings it, it doesn't hit these entities like it did now, all these school, because we have people protesting all day long, but each individual case has to be, and I don't know that it's the manager's responsibility to do that. I've talked with Chris, And I'm actually working with one of the girls, she's gonna help me. So we have a procedure where, you know, they'll give it to me, I look at it, if it's 1,500, I'll let the assessor know if she doesn't get served in 60 days, then they're not protesting. Of course, this one was 6 months later too, so everything's, but if it's this big, it has to be, and what I used to do is pay it and then take it right back out. So it never got dispersed, ever.
Real quick, let me finish. And the one thing the commission has done in our last meeting is we've established already a new policy that says if there are lawsuits out there by other departments not initiated by the commission itself, that the commission has to be notified on some schedule and periodically updated on the status of those lawsuits. And that was a policy that the commission didn't have previously. I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Trujillo.
So one thing I'd like just to talk to my fellow commissioners on. So I understand the timeline and the events that occurred. So it was an unseen circumstance that couldn't have been avoided in either way. So the way I'm looking at it now is we have to go off what the court ruling was. So, I mean, I'd like to hear your opinions on this, my fellow commissioners, but so the unlawful reclassification as opposed to an excess valuation, that was coming directly from the judge's thing. So unlawful, I guess that means it's breaking the law, that we should not have done that. So in that part, I see that the county as a whole, I see all of its offices as the county. I feel like, I would support too, if we were to take out of our general fund and make entities whole in a lawsuit from the number that we have here. That would be mine.
And I did talk to Rita Doso, because Chairman Weir asked me to. They had this happen in their county and in Lincoln County. And the assessor didn't take it but they talked about it before, you know, everybody. And before I voided those, it was decided that they were gonna pay it.
Chairman, thank you. So I would agree with Commissioner Trujillo. I think there were several unfortunate procedural errors and circumstances here that it was definitely not the fault of the affected entities, and I think that we need to hold them all harmless. So I would make a motion to hold the affected entities in the school hospital in Luna harmless in this, as a result of the Assessor McCoy case.
The assessor's office supports that decision.
And I would second that, and I just wanted to be noted that this was an unforeseen circumstance, and I understand that it's the affected entities have waited a long time for this, so I appreciate your understanding, but it's been needed it's been helpful for me to understand everything as far as that goes, so I just want to say that. Thank you, and you're my second.
And just to be clear for the audience, the motion is to hold the affected entities harmless, which means that the county, if I interpret this correctly, Madam Commissioner, the county would compensate the affected entities for the amounts that they were anticipating receiving. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. And if you want, I can read that off of here, so that could be part of the.
There's one thing before we do that, a friendly amendment to your motion, Madam Commissioner. The assessor's office had made comments at one point, I don't know if they are still ready, but they said that they may have some money in their budget to help with this effort. And so I would like a friendly amendment to say that the manager work with the assessor's office to determine that those funds would come from the assessor's office first before the general fund. And then what could not come out of the assessor's office, since we don't have those numbers in front of us, and then be made up by the general fund. So I request a friendly amendment.
Accepted.
With that, I'd also accept that it's just per the McCoy lawsuit, the be added to that, they hold from the McCoy lawsuit. And that, with this coming out of the assessor's budget or whatever, I don't want to hold this money out, I want to get it out there. So
But I think what needs to be happened for a proper paper trail in order to make the schools, the county, everybody, those tax roll changes, again, are gonna have to go back the way they were. And then, so Alfonso and I will have to work with the assessor, they're gonna have to give me the old values, come up with the same exact number, because I don't know, unless June knows of a way to pay them, but we won't see a negative, we won't correct those negative balances unless June finds a way, and they'll just let it keep riding. And you guys, I don't know, you paying everybody or just a few that are
We
negative?
would have to pay everyone.
All of them.
Okay, then we need to do tax roll changes. It has to be a correct paper trail. And then we need to collect the money from the county, however, we'll get a check from the county, whether it's from the assessor's line item or whoever.
So I'm gonna disagree. I don't think that it includes the state. And I don't think that it includes the county, because we're gonna be paying ourselves. So why would
But in
we
order to
risk
get
it?
the correct paper trail,
So my question is, why could we not just disperse checks to these entities? Does it have to go through the treasurer's office as a tax? Because legally, the taxes, the way they're dispersed are correct according to the courts. So right now, the taxes records are correct according to the courts. So shouldn't we just disperse a check?
if June finds a way to do it, but these negative balances, the school districts need to know they'll keep.
We're just gonna give them the money, and they're gonna have a negative balance float until
Till they-
it
yeah,
naturally
that's
goes
what they
away.
want.
But we're gonna give them the money through a separate check. Because right now, the courts, the way the courts declared it, the treasurer's office numbers are accurate.
So what you're saying is you're gonna cut Springer School to check for our,
20,063.
but until it's all on this tax roll, you're still gonna send me the negatives. I can't do that. I have to deposit this, I have to give 1% of what I give to the state of New Mexico on core funds. I have to be able to show that, so you're gonna cut me a check for 20,000, well, how am I gonna show that deposited in the four separate funds, and then the 1% that goes back to the state on that?
I'm all for paper trail, I'm all for it, we're going back the proper way. Cause I don't wanna be caught up into something that's not done.
And, I'm not understanding why you're saying it'll keep telling me the negatives. This is handwritten negatives.
That's right, I have to
So,
adjust, I have to adjust
There's
those
an
negatives.
actual report coming from you is not negative.
Because it's showing the amount collected that month. I have to bring up those negatives from last month and adjust that. That's something I don't wanna do. The software can't fix that, because it's just tracking what's collected that month. I mean, my chief deputy, I was going around and around with him about that too, because I wanted the negative to keep coming over, and it's not. I have to manually adjust that.
Mr. Chairman, call for question. I
Yes,
think we've got a vote, motion on the floor, and I think we need to take action on that vote. I think the logistics of all of this can be worked out with the manager and the treasurer's office and the schools on how to do this. I don't think we need to sort that out here. I think we just need to.
I just want it to be done
So you have that
legally
second.
and correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, do you want to read the motion?
No, but I'll get it for you. So, okay, so let me find here. So, motion to hold the affected entities harmless, adding in that the county would,
Take from the assessor.
Work with the assessor.
you guys would take from the assessors and then give the listing of the amount of numbers, and the manager will work with the assessor's office to see which budget, how much money they have in their budget to move forward, and then the rest will come out of the general fund.
And adding McCoy.
And adding McCoy lawsuit.
McCoy lost it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern? Yes. Commissioner Trujillo?
Yes.
Chairman White?
Yes. Okay, thank you all very much, I appreciate it, I know several people are in the audience on that issue, and I do appreciate you coming. Hopefully this will rectify the issue with our government agencies and make us people whole again.
I just want to thank everyone for this, and I'm looking forward to moving forward.
Okay, next item 23 is the Commissioner's Docket. Commissioner Kern.
The only thing, I received a couple of calls last week about some issues with elm trees. Hope Glenn's still here. They're in the Maxwell area, Elm Tree Road, and Whitey Road, whatever you want to call it. Other than that, the trash pickup has improved. They've been consistent, so grateful for that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Trujillo.
Thank you. I have a few little things. I'd like to just please note that we're still working on the vacate of A17, and that's in progress. Been working with Tabitha in our office. We are making progress, and hopefully we should make the next agenda with some information on that. I finally finished my review of all the public offices, and it was very educational, and I learned a lot. I was very happy, and I would kind of ask the county manager to look into making this a requirement for the county, for any newly elected commissioners to actually go through the offices and fully understand what they do. Also, just another thing from this, I got to walk through the buildings, and per our statute, we only go through the jail. And I think we need to go through all of our buildings at least once a year as either individuals or as a whole. So I'd like to see that put in there because, walking through our roads department building, I feel we would have got some stuff straightened out a lot sooner than, and then there's other stuff I see at the courthouse and stuff like that where we could see that we need to protect our investments and our assets that the county has on the books, is what I'm getting at. I had my coffee with the commissioner. It was pretty good. I had a good handful of people show up. But there's some good ideas and something I've already talked with the county manager about is with our recent trash issues that some of the winds, when the winds pick up, our trash gets blown. And I was thinking maybe we could put up some deer fence around those trash cans to kind of help keep the trash in place as long as the wind blows in 3 directions. I guess if it blows the other way, I'm not too sure. But also want to give the commission a little update. I did apply for the congressional directed spending. I did about $730,000, I think, for the roads department. I asked for a new building to be built. This is what we use the funds for, is a new building, getting culverts and cattle guards, enough so we could go out and do some replacements and have an inventory, and also 4 new pickup trucks. It's kind of a shot in the dark in the long term, or it's a grab, but I figured it'd be worth a try. I also applied, I think, for about $950,000 for the county building, more so to improve security through various ways, and then also evaluation and updates to the HVAC system and build out of county offices. So, and what I mean by build out of county offices, if you go down to any of our elected officials' offices, there's 2 or 3 people in one room. Sometimes you need to have private calls with constituents, etc. So I think that could be something to look at in the future. Hopefully we can get some funds from the federal government to do this. I've talked with Representative Sanchez. He's going to be sending me a letter of support. I've reached out to Jack Chatfield, Representative Jack Chatfield, and Senator Campos. I'm still waiting their reply. I did meet the deadline. I've been talking with Senator Lujan's office, and they will accept these letters through the end of the month. So I did attend 2 other different meetings. I did it through Grow Reptile and Public Land Solutions. They had some stuff this last week. They had a very insightful and good information as far as growing business in the community and how to use public land and encourage tourism within hunting, fishing, etc. But one thing I want to bring to Commissioner Weir that they had it was very interesting, and I thought we could get this with the public, or with Angel Fire Airport, they have a flying. And there's a group that they'd love just to come flying in, might be an event that could be held there and help the local businesses and give something for the people up there to see and do. Also, they talked about the Tony Hawk Foundation, and I don't know how you guys would be feeling to this, but we do have part of that land up there with the county, where the county rodeo grounds are at, the event center. And might be worth pursuing to do a skate park out there. If the Tony Hawk Foundation can pay for it, we have the land. It gives something to at least the communities to come and try. So those are just a couple ideas. And then tenant ECOG meeting, they'll have a thing that I'll probably be bringing forward. And ECOG stands for the, what is it? Enchanted Circle Council of Governments. So they're talking about trying to do something with the Lodgers Tax Fund to help open a film office where the Enchanted Circle communities would help support this office financially. But they're checking to see if they'll go with the Hospitality Association if they're on board. We'll kind of go from there. And just last thing I had was I plan to join County Manager Board on Thursday just to go up to the Angel Fire Airport to see it, and it's going to be a fly on the wall. That's all.
Do you know if that meeting will still happen, Fred?
On the 30th?
Yeah, because of what the action that was taken today.
I don't know.
Because I was.
My only other concern with that is I don't know that, did we do an announcement that there'll be 2 petitions?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Just to be safe, I don't know if you were going to attend or not, but I asked that you get noticed. I don't want to talk to you about any business or anything like that. So, like I said, be a fly on the wall in the back and just kind of get an education.
Okay. Is that it? So I do have a couple of things. One, I want to notify the commission that on May the 11th, we will have a regional broadband meeting in Springer. It's going to be at Luna Junior College right now. And so the state's received quite a large amount of funding to expand broadband across the state. They've broken the state up into 7 districts, and they're then accumulating input from counties and municipal agencies across these 7 districts. They're trying to figure out where the best places are going to be to expend their broadband expansion funds. The Northeast District is, I volunteered to set up this meeting for our district. And like I said, it'll be an all-day event on May the 11th. They'll need people from the county. We'll need our GIS people there. There'll be a GIS class. There will be other people throughout the county that may have some input into the broadband initiative. So I just want to make y'all aware of that. I concur with Commissioner Kearns yesterday. I spent the day driving through the valley and hitting all of the trash locations, and they all looked very clean. The trash was collected at all the locations, so I think that's the first time since Thanksgiving that I've seen it that way anyway. It does look like we're turning things around in the area of trash. Also, if you haven't heard already, the Cimarron Watershed Alliance, Rick Smith from the Cimarron Watershed Alliance, I was able to work with Rick in a committee of homeowner associations in Moreno Valley. We applied for a $8.3 million grant from the Community Wildfire Defense grant. And we received that grant. So we received, it actually, because there is some matching funds, or in-kind matches required, it's actually just about 8.1 million is the actual grant amount. We have 4.5 years to spend that money on the unincorporated areas of Moreno Valley that have needs for fuel reduction to prevent forest fires. Just another positive thing, the Cimarron Watershed Alliance, in conjunction with the Flying Horse Ranch, which is a large ranch in the Moreno Valley, received another 1.5 million or 1.8, I think, maybe it was 1.8 million, to create a fire break through an area of their ranch that's gonna come across their ranch and it's gonna connect to the Bobcat Ranch, who's already created of their own funds a fire break, or in the process of doing so. And that basically goes all the way up to the Viavidal. So there will be, hopefully eventually that fire break will come from the Viavidal, will come all the way across that northwestern part of Colfax County, and hopefully working with the Taos Pueblo, we'll be able to eventually connect that all the way down to the fire break that was put in during the Hermit Peaks fire that goes basically up behind the Taos Pines area. And it goes all the way south down to Chacon, I think. I'm not sure exactly how far south that goes, but anyhow, so that's another 1.8 million. Colfax, of this fund, this grant was $160 million a year for the next 5 years. That is going out to western states to conduct full fuel reduction in our both public and private forests. And it's one of the first large grants that is, the money's being allowed to spend on private land. So of that money that was dispersed this year in the state of New Mexico, 86% of it came to Colfax County. So Colfax County got 86% of the funds dispersed to the state of New Mexico. So I think that's a big win for us. I think that we're going to see a lot of interaction. I think it does spur us to start working with state forestry and U.S. forestry on figuring out how we can continue to work with them in order to prevent disasters in Colfax County like we saw last year in San Miguel and Moore County. Also, I filled out a congressional directed spending request. You know, in Colfax County, according to my constituents anyhow, the biggest issue that we face right now, certainly from an economic development perspective, is workforce housing. And so in an effort to develop workforce housing in the area, there is an apartment complex just outside of Angel Fire, but it's in an unincorporated Colfax County. And the complex was originally built in 1986, and it was originally intended to have 72 units. Well, the contractor in 86 built 2 buildings, so they built out 24 units. But they have a water system and they had a sewer system, basically a septic tank that was designed for the 72 systems. Well, so a new developer bought that property. It's 30 acres. It has 24 units on it today, with the intent to further develop it. The issue was that septic system put in 1986 was not going to pass its inspection. It's already leaching above the ground, so there's during certain times of the year. There's groundwater above the leach field. And it's basically not gonna, it would be extremely expensive to replace that. And not to mention that if they stayed with the septic system, it would reduce the number of units that they would be able to develop, because the septic system leach field takes quite a bit of land. Even if you're aerating, which is what they'd have to go to an aerated system, there's quite a bit of acreage that aeration would have to be spread across. And so we're looking at several things in response to that, because that septic system is what's holding the developer up today. The developer is ready to pull the trigger on 48 additional units initially. But the issue is the cost of the septic system is pricing them out of the market. They couldn't charge workforce housing rates for the apartments and pay for the development of the apartments and pay for the septic system. So again, shot in the dark. What I did was I called in Rick Tafoya, who used to be the water wastewater superintendent for the village of Angel Fire and is now retired. We went out, we measured, we did an estimate on what it would take to run a line from the village of Angel Fire system out to that apartment complex. Came in pretty high. Septic was going to be about 6 million. Water lines were going to be 1 million, is what the estimate is. They don't really need water lines out there because they have 15 acre-feet of water rights already with that land. So I put in congressional directed spending for $6 million in 3 phases, 1 million the first year, 1 million second year, and 4 million in the third year. If we don't get that, and that would be the best solution, because it would open up all the land between that apartment and the blinking light, basically where the connection would be. If y'all know the blinking light where you turn to go to Angel Fire, it'd open all of that up for development. In addition to that, on the other side of 64 is the Veterans Wellness and Healing Center. They have plans to put in a hotel there and a convention center type setup there for their meetings, and it would reduce their costs. They would be able to hook in. Right now, the Village of Angel Fire's wastewater treatment plant is running at about 10% capacity. So they built this plant 18 years ago thinking Angel Fire was going to take off. They overbuilt it significantly. So the Village of Angel Fire needs more input into that plant really to keep that plant healthy. And they just are in the process, I should say, of spending almost $4.5 million to upgrade that plant as well to meet EPA standards. So that was one option. If that doesn't go through, I will be coming back to the county to apply for a CDBG grant and to try and put in a wastewater treatment, what they call a package plant, which is a lot less expensive. It's probably going to be a little over $1 million, which we could get up to $750 on a CDBG grant for that facility. And I was told by the developer that if we could come up with $750 and it was $1 million, they'd kick in the other $250 for that plant. And there's a lot of details to work out. I can see Mary Lou's wheels turning, thinking about the requirements of this. And so there are some issues that would need to be worked out because we would have to own the plant, and then we would have to contract maintenance. But these package plants, if you do your research into them, they're very low maintenance. They would basically require a monthly inspection to operate. They don't have full-time operators, and so on. So I just wanted to make y'all aware that I did that, and that is a project we're working on, because if we can solve the septic system issue, we'll go a long way in solving the workforce housing issues in Moreno Valley.
Where is the Veteran Center and that where they have the trailer? Is that part of? Is it in the city limits? Angel Fire? It's out.
It's out.
Okay. I wasn't sure if they annexed that or not.
That would be another thing. They currently have a septic system that they're operating, so if we ran the pipe down, you know, they potentially could connect as well, which is much better for the environment, much better for the water table, because the plant that Age of Fire has, the water is actually, that comes out of that plant is cleaner than the water naturally running through Cienega, the creek that it goes into, which feeds into Eagleness Lake. So the water is actually cleaner than the natural water in the creek, the way that plant, and like I said, they're just wrapping up 4.5 million spend on upgrading that to the latest technology, that plant. So that would be ideal. It's more expensive that way, but if it's congressional directed spending, I figured it's not costing us anything if we could get that, and it would be the best for everybody. But if we can't get that, then we're gonna go the CDBG grant route to try and get grant money.
So that's makes sense. That we didn't qualify. We missed it by that 1% of qualifying.
So I've actually been in contact and with North Central Economic Development, and they felt like with, I don't know, I guess they're basing it on the new numbers for the 2020 census, that we're gonna meet the, what is it, LMI requirements. You know, it is close. But I think we will meet those requirements. And that's all I have, thank you. Mr. Manager, your turn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Actually, with my comments, Chief Sandoval, would you like to come up to the podium? First of all, I would like to thank Tom. I know I loaded Tom up. Hopefully it's for a very short period of time. The only reason I would do that is I find him extremely competent, our emergency manager, and he does an incredible job. And I was very impressed with everything he's done in looking at creating ordinances and following up on the commission's directives. And thank you, Tom, our emergency manager, for a job well done. I also want to thank Jonah and Virginia. Last night they accompanied me to a meeting with all our fire departments. And those fire departments that were representative, county fire departments from Miami, French Track, Reno Valley, Farley, U Park, Vermejo, Philmont, and Rapid Response. And I kind of wanted to get Chief Sandoval's opinion, but I thought that was probably one of the most positive meetings that we've had. And I think the interaction between our financial specialists and working with all the fire chiefs to really work on making, getting equipment stuff much more efficient. And I think Virginia's coming in. I appreciate how excited you are about taking on new responsibilities, and it's so refreshing. And I think working together, the county with all of our fire departments in a very positive, constructive way is exactly the direction we need to go. Do you have any comments, Chief, while you're here?
As far as comments, I don't have a lot. In the past, it just seems like we've always been left without a voice as fire chiefs. It seems like we've always ran into that brick wall as far as the fire marshal's office. Any concerns, comments that we've ever had always pretty much come to a halt there. It never goes beyond that point. So it did come to the point where I felt that I had to utilize the chain of command and go above fire marshal's head at this time. In doing so, it wasn't like an unwanted email, but that ever not email, but a Facebook post, which has since been taken care of. But in doing so, now it seems that we are being heard more, and then I was glad that we did have the help and the assistance of your office to bring us a little bit more up to speed on how procurement and stuff is done. In the past, we were always kind of held to going filtering through the fire marshal's office, and We're at the mercy of whether this stuff got done in a timely manner or not. Now I think with just a little bit of training, some of us, with a little bit of help and learning the system a little bit better, I think it'll be a lot more efficient for us. So, I mean, like I said, I do appreciate it, and I do commend that, the county manager's office has stepped up quite a bit to help us out.
Well, Chief, thank you, and on behalf, I'm sure that of all of us up here, I just want to thank all of you with the emergency response and taking on the responsibilities of safeguarding our county. And thank you all for the job well done. Thank you. So I'd also like to thank our former road superintendent, Robert. I think the discussion today about getting Glenn, an administrative assistant, I appreciate you stepping up. I agree, I think we're all in agreement that Road and Bridge Department really needs that position. I want to thank the commission for approving that as well. I would like to thank the commission for the grant writer, project manager position. I think that is going to open doors of opportunity that our county has never seen before. So once again, I think we did some good work today. Commissioner Trujillo, I agree with you. I think we need to start investing in Colfax County and once again in our people. And I know you two are in the Road and Bridge Department, and I will set up something during budget to have the commission take a tour of that. But Road and Bridge does need to be brought up to speed. There are infrastructure needs out there, and we really need to invest in our Road and Bridge Department. And I think investing in our Road and Bridge Department and giving them the type of facilities that they, and I'm not going to say want, that they absolutely unequivocally need, I think that will even help in recruiting and retention for their staff and for operators as well. And other than that, Mr. Chairman, I think your timing is impeccable today.
Okay, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion second, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Kern? Yes. Mr. Trujillo?
Yes.
Chairman Moore?
Yes. This meeting is adjourned.
No, what's this?